Hi, and welcome back to Buddy Chronicle. Today, a grandfather ignores all the warning signs for 3 years. When he finally pays attention, what he discovers in a storm cellar changes everything. Well, here we go. The first thing I noticed was the bruise on my grandson's neck. 4 fingerprints, purple and yellow, wrapped around his throat like a handprint from hell. I was standing in the kitchen of my daughter's farmhouse at 6:47 p.m. on Thanksgiving evening, and my 8-year-old grandson was wearing a turtleneck sweater in a room where the thermostat read 74 degrees. My name is Harold Brennan. Most people call me Harry. I'm 64 years old, retired from the Dayton Fire Department after 38 years of service. I've pulled children from burning buildings. I've performed CPR on heart attack victims. I've seen things that would keep most people awake for years. But nothing prepared me for what I found that Thanksgiving at my daughter Sarah's house in Millbrook, Ohio. I hadn't visited in 3 years. That's the part that still keeps me up at night. 3 years. My wife Eleanor had been sick, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and I'd spent every moment caring for her until she passed in April. The grief had swallowed me whole. I'd barely spoken to anyone for months, including my only daughter. Sarah called in early November. "Dad, you can't spend Thanksgiving alone. Kevin and I want you here. Lucas has been asking about you." Kevin, my son-in-law. He'd married Sarah 8 years ago. A whirlwind romance that happened so fast I barely had time to meet him before the wedding. He was charming, successful, owned a small construction company. Sarah seemed happy. I had no reason to object. I drove the 4 hours from Dayton to Millbrook on Thanksgiving morning. The farmhouse was beautiful, a restored Victorian on 12 acres of land that Kevin had bought 3 years ago. The kind of place Eleanor and I had always dreamed of retiring to. Sarah greeted me at the door. She looked thin, thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Behind her, Kevin shook my hand with a grip that was just a little too firm. "Good to see you, Harry. Lucas is excited you're here." "Where is he?" "In his room. He's been a little under the weather." "I'll get him." Lucas came down the stairs slowly, one step at a time, like each movement hurt. He was wearing that turtleneck, navy blue, pulled up high on his neck. When he saw me, his face lit up for just a moment before something flickered across his expression. Fear. I recognized it instantly. 38 years as a firefighter, you learn to read faces. "Hey, buddy." I knelt down, opened my arms. "Come, give Grandpa a hug." He walked toward me, stiff, careful. When I pulled him close, he flinched. Not the normal squirm of an 8-year-old who thinks he's too old for hugs. A flinch. Like he was expecting pain. That's when I saw it. The turtleneck had shifted, revealing those 4 bruises on his neck. "Lucas, what happened to your neck?" The room went silent. I felt Kevin's presence behind me like a physical weight. "He fell," Kevin said smoothly. "Playing on the tire, swing out back. Got tangled in the rope." I looked at my grandson. His eyes were fixed on the floor. "Is that what happened, Lucas?" "Yes, Grandpa. I fell. Children lie. I know this. But they lie differently than adults. Adults lie with their whole body, controlling every muscle, every gesture. Children lie with their words while their bodies scream the truth." Lucas's body was screaming. Dinner was uncomfortable. Sarah barely spoke, just pushed food around her plate. Kevin dominated the conversation, talking about his business, his plans to expand, the new equipment he'd bought. Lucas sat rigid in his chair, eating mechanically, never looking up. "May I be excused?" Lucas asked, after barely touching his turkey. "No," Kevin said flatly. "You'll sit until everyone is finished." The boy froze. I watched his hands grip the edge of the table until his knuckles went white. "Kevin, he's eaten enough," Sarah said softly. "He needs to learn discipline. Children need structure, consistency. Right, Lucas?" "Yes, sir, sir." My 8-year-old grandson was calling his stepfather sir. After dinner, I offered to help with dishes. Sarah accepted, and Kevin took Lucas upstairs for a bath. As soon as they were gone, I turned to my daughter. Sarah, what's going on in this house? What do you mean? Those bruises on Lucas's neck. That's not from a tire swing. Sarah's face crumpled. She gripped the edge of the sink, her knuckles white, just like Lucas's had been. Dad, please. Is Kevin hurting him? It's complicated. No, it isn't. Either that man is hurting my grandson, or he isn't. Kevin has high expectations, Sarah whispered. He believes in strict discipline. He grew up that way, and he turned out fine. Fine? Sarah, Lucas is terrified. I can see it. You don't understand. Kevin provides for us. This house, this life. After Marcus left me with nothing, Kevin saved us. Marcus was Sarah's first husband, Lucas's biological father. He'd walked out when Lucas was 2 years old. Disappeared completely. I'd never liked him, but at least he'd never hurt anyone. Nothing is worth your son's safety, I said. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Dad, please. Just let it go. It's not that bad. Kevin loves Lucas. He just shows it differently. I should have pushed harder. Should have grabbed my grandson and walked out the door right then. But I saw my daughter's desperation, her fear of being alone, her belief that this was somehow normal. I told myself I'd keep watching, gather evidence, figure out the right approach. That night, I couldn't sleep. The guest room was on the second floor, across the hall from Lucas's room. At 2:17 a.m., I heard footsteps. Soft, careful, I cracked my door open. Lucas was creeping down the stairs, a small backpack over his shoulders. I followed him. He went through the kitchen, out the back door, across the yard toward the barn. The night was cold, breath visible in the moonlight. Lucas moved like he knew exactly where he was going. Behind the barn, half hidden by overgrown weeds, was a storm cellar. The old kind, concrete walls, wooden doors that lay flat against the ground. Lucas stopped in front of it, set down his backpack, and pulled out a flashlight. Lucas. He spun around, eyes wide with terror. Grandpa, please, you have to go back inside. What are you doing out here? I can't tell you. I knelt down, put my hands on his shoulders. He flinched again, and I saw more bruises, these ones on his arms, visible now that he was wearing short sleeves. Lucas, whatever it is, you can tell me. I'm your grandfather. I will protect you. His eyes filled with tears. The flashlight trembled in his hand. There's someone down there, Grandpa. In the cellar? Kevin puts me down there when I'm bad. In the dark. Sometimes for a whole night. But there's someone else down there too. I can hear them. Scratching. Crying. My blood ran cold. Someone else? Kevin says it's where the bad ones go. The ones who don't behave. He says if I tell anyone, I'll have to stay down there forever, like the other one. The other one. Like the other one. Lucas, I need you to go back to the house. Go to your mother's room. Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone except me. What are you going to do? I'm going to look in that cellar? No. His voice cracked. Please, Grandpa. Kevin will know. He always knows. I picked him up, carried him back to the house. He weighed almost nothing, just bones and fear. I brought him to Sarah's room, woke her up, told her to lock the door and not open it until I came back. Dad, what's happening? I think there's someone trapped in your storm cellar. What? That's crazy. Kevin uses it for storage. Lock the door, Sarah. I went back outside. The storm cellar doors were secured with a heavy padlock, the kind you'd use on a storage unit. Industrial grade. Overkill for a root cellar. I found a crowbar in the barn. Took me 4 hits to break the lock. The sound echoed across the empty fields, and I knew I didn't have much time. I lifted the doors. The smell hit me first. Damp earth, decay, and something else. Something chemical. Cleaning solution. Bleach. I descended the concrete steps, flashlight cutting through the darkness. The cellar was larger than I expected, maybe 15 by 20 feet. Against the far wall, I saw a mattress, stained and filthy. Chains bolted to the floor. Water bottles. A bucket. And in the corner, curled into a ball, was a child. Not Lucas. Another child. A girl, maybe 10 or 11 years old, so thin I could count her ribs through her torn shirt. Her hair was matted, her skin pale as paper. When my flashlight hit her, she threw up her hands and screamed, "No, please. I'll be good. I'll be good." I crossed the cellar in 3 steps, knelt beside her. Her ankle was chained to a bolt in the floor. The skin around the metal was raw, infected. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to get you out of here." She was shaking so violently her teeth chattered. Her eyes were wild, unfocused. The eyes of an animal that had been caged too long. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma. Emma Calloway. Emma Calloway." The name hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd seen that name on the news 3 years ago. A girl who disappeared from a gas station in Columbus while her mother was paying inside. Massive search, nationwide coverage, never found. She'd been here, 15 miles from Columbus. I tried to break the chain, couldn't. The bolt was embedded deep in concrete. "I'm going to get help. I'll be right back. Don't leave me, please. I promise. I swear on my life." I ran up the steps, into the cold night air, and nearly collided with Kevin Mallory. He was standing at the top of the cellar stairs, a shotgun in his hands. His face was calm, almost serene. "I really wish you hadn't done that, Harry. You sick son of a bitch. There's a child down there." "I know. How long? How long has she been down there?" 3 years. Since we moved here. I saw her at that gas station, and I knew. She was bad. Willful. I could see it in her eyes. Her parents couldn't control her. No one could. "So you took her?" "I saved her, just like I'm saving Lucas." Children need discipline, Harry. Structure. Consequences. My father understood that. His father. I remembered Sarah mentioning that Kevin's father had died when Kevin was young. Some kind of accident. "Your father did this to you?" Kevin's jaw tightened. "My father taught me what it meant to behave. He taught my brother, too. But my brother never learned. He was weak. Brother. Kevin had never mentioned a brother. "What happened to your brother, Kevin?" "He went down to the cellar one night and never came back." The words hung in the air between us. I understood then, understood everything. The cycle of abuse passed down like a genetic disease. Kevin had been that boy in the cellar once. His brother had been down there too. And his brother had died there. "I'm going to call the police," I said. "No, Harry, you're not." He raised the shotgun. "I spent 38 years running into burning buildings. You learn something in that job. You learn that hesitation kills. You learn to act first and think later." I charged him. The shotgun went off, but I was already inside his reach, driving my shoulder into his chest. We went down hard, the weapon flying from his hands. Kevin was younger than me by 20 years. Stronger. But I had surprise on my side. I got one good punch in, felt his nose crack under my fist. He threw me off, scrambled for the shotgun. I grabbed his ankle, pulled him down. We rolled through the frozen grass, trading blows, until my hand closed around a rock the size of my fist. I hit him once. He went still. I don't know how long I stood there, gasping, bleeding from a cut above my eye. Long enough for Sarah to come running from the house, screaming, "Dad! Dad, what did you do? Call 911. Now. What happened? What's going on? There's a girl in your cellar, Sarah. A little girl who's been chained down there for 3 years? Your husband took her." Sarah's face went white. "What? Did you know?" "No. God, no, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." The police arrived in 11 minutes. Kevin was still unconscious when they handcuffed him. The paramedics went down into the cellar and came back up with Emma Calloway wrapped in a shock blanket, clinging to an EMT like he was her only anchor to the world. Sarah collapsed when she saw the girl, just dropped to her knees in the grass and started sobbing. Lucas appeared in the doorway of the house, watching everything with wide eyes. I went to him, blocked his view. Is the bad man going away, Grandpa? Yes, Buddy, he's going away forever. The investigation uncovered more than anyone expected. Kevin Mallory had grown up in a farmhouse in Kentucky, raised by a father who believed in discipline that would make most people sick. Kevin and his younger brother Daniel had been subjected to unimaginable abuse. When Kevin was 14, his father locked 7-year-old Daniel in a root cellar as punishment for wetting the bed. He forgot about him. 3 days later, Daniel was dead from dehydration and exposure. Kevin's father buried the body in the woods behind the property, told the neighbors that Daniel had run away. The case was never investigated, barely even reported. In rural Kentucky, in 1993, children went missing and nobody asked too many questions. Kevin's father died of a heart attack 5 years later. Kevin inherited the farm, sold it, and moved to Ohio. He became successful, charming, respected, but the monster his father had created was still there, lurking beneath the surface. When he met Sarah, he saw an opportunity. A woman with a young son, desperate for stability. A chance to have a family he could control. Emma Calloway was his first victim outside the family. Something about her had triggered him at that gas station. Maybe she reminded him of his brother. Maybe she reminded him of himself. The psychiatrist at Kevin's trial called it a compulsion to recreate his childhood trauma, to be the one in power instead of the one in chains. Lucas had been in that cellar too, dozens of times over 3 years. Sarah hadn't known about Emma, but she had known about the cellar. She'd convinced herself it was just a timeout space, just Kevin's way of disciplining a difficult child, the willful blindness of a woman too afraid to face the truth. The police found Daniel Mallory's remains 2 months later, buried exactly where Kevin said they would be. Dental records confirmed the identity. Kevin's father's crimes were finally exposed, 30 years too late for the little boy who had died alone in the dark. Kevin Mallory was convicted on 47 counts: kidnapping, false imprisonment, child abuse, assault. He received 4 consecutive life sentences. He will die in prison. Sarah lost custody of Lucas, not because she had directly harmed him, but because she had failed to protect him. The court determined that her willful blindness to the obvious signs of abuse constituted negligence. Lucas was placed with me. I didn't fight that decision. Neither did Sarah. That was 2 years ago. Lucas is 10 now. He lives with me in a small house in Dayton. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a backyard with a basketball hoop I installed last summer. No cellar, no basement. I made sure of that before I signed the papers. He's in therapy twice a week with a child psychologist named Dr. Rachel Torres, a woman who specializes in trauma and who has become something like family to us. The nightmares were terrible at first. He would wake up screaming, convinced he was back in that cellar, convinced the door was locked and no one was coming. I would hold him until he calmed down, tell him he was safe, tell him I would never let anyone hurt him again. Promise, Grandpa? Promise, Buddy. The nightmares are less frequent now. He still has them, especially when he's stressed, but there are more good nights than bad ones. Dr. Torres says he's resilient. She says children have an incredible capacity to heal when they feel safe and loved. I'm trying to make him feel both. Emma Calloway was reunited with her parents 3 days after I found her. I watched the coverage on the news, the tearful embrace, the mother who had never stopped searching. Emma spent 6 months in intensive rehabilitation, physical and psychological. She's 12 now, back in school, slowly rebuilding a life that Kevin Mallory tried to destroy. Her parents sent me a letter last Christmas. No words could ever express our gratitude. You gave us back our daughter. You gave us back our world. I keep that letter in my desk drawer. I read it sometimes when the guilt gets too heavy. The guilt of not visiting sooner, not seeing the signs, not saving Lucas before 3 years of hell. Sarah sees Lucas once a month now, supervised visitation at a family center in Columbus. She completed a year of intensive therapy, confronting the ways she had enabled Kevin's abuse, the ways her own desperation for stability had blinded her to her son's suffering. I don't hate her anymore. I did for a while. Hated her for not protecting my grandson, for choosing Kevin's money and security over her own child's safety. But watching her at those visitations, seeing the desperate love in her eyes, the guilt she carries every single day, I realized something. Sarah was a victim too. Not in the same way as Lucas or Emma, but she had been manipulated by a man who was very, very good at hiding what he was. Kevin had spent years conditioning her, isolating her from family, making her believe that his version of discipline was normal. She didn't see the monster because he didn't want her to see it. I'll never trust her fully again. The custody arrangement won't change, but I've stopped hating her. Hate takes too much energy. I'd rather spend that energy on Lucas. There's one more thing I need to tell you. Last month, Lucas and I drove to Kentucky. We visited the place where Daniel Mallory is now buried, a proper grave in a small cemetery outside Louisville. The county had paid for the headstone after no family members could be located. Lucas had asked to go. He'd learned about Daniel during the trial, pieced together that this little boy had suffered the same things he had, only worse. He was like me, Grandpa, Lucas said as we stood in front of the grave. Kevin's brother. He was scared, like me, but nobody saved him. I put my hand on his shoulder. I know, buddy. Lucas knelt down, placed a small toy car against the headstone. I brought this for you, Daniel. I know it's been a long time, but I wanted you to know somebody remembers. Somebody knows what happened. You're not forgotten anymore. He stood up, took my hand. Can we get ice cream, Grandpa? Sure, buddy. We walked back to the car, leaving Daniel Mallory in the Kentucky sunshine, finally at peace. If you're watching this, I need you to understand something. Monsters are real. They don't look like monsters. They look like charming husbands and successful businessmen. They look like the guy who coaches Little League and volunteers at church. They hide in plain sight, behind smiles and handshakes and carefully constructed lies. Pay attention to the children in your life. When they flinch at sudden movements, when they wear long sleeves in summer, when they call adults sir and walk like every step hurts. Listen to them. Believe them. Protect them. I lost 3 years because I was too consumed by my own grief to visit my daughter. 3 years when my grandson was being tortured by a man who sat across from me at Thanksgiving dinner. 3 years when a little girl was chained in a cellar 15 miles from the highway. Lucas saved himself by going to that cellar when I was visiting. If I hadn't followed him, Emma Calloway would still be down there. Or worse. Be the person who pays attention. Be the person who asks the hard questions. Be the person who breaks down the door and goes into the cellar. Lucas is in the backyard right now. I can see him through the kitchen window, shooting hoops, laughing when he misses. 10 years old. Messy hair, grass-stained jeans, a smile that gets a little easier every day. My grandson. Alive, healing, free. 2 years ago, I found him in the dark. Today, he's arguing with me about whether he's old enough for a cell phone. Life goes on. That's what I've learned. Even after the worst things imaginable, life goes on. You just have to keep showing up, keep holding on, keep being there when they need you. I found my grandson by accident. A Thanksgiving visit I almost canceled. A bruise I almost ignored. A cellar door I almost didn't open. Sometimes fate gives you a chance to save someone. The question is whether you take it. I took it, and I would take it again, every single time. Thanks for listening. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who works with children, someone who might recognize the signs. You could save a life. You really could.